So for those of you that don't know about us, Slough Fort, we are in All Hallows, just opposite Southend. The fort was built in the 1800s to counter our lovely neighbours, the French, from invading. So more about the project. We decided, myself working for a local farming company, my extended family working in that company as well as my grandfather also being a trustee of Slough Fort Preservation Trust, that we wanted to do something that could work alongside the heritage of the area, the heritage of the fort site itself, while also trying to benefit the local community and the environment as best as we possibly could. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So part of the project was an orchard. Another part of it, and quite possibly one of my favourite parts of the project, was actually the introduction of wild bees to the site. There have been bee colonies found in the wider local area to the fort. Talking to residents that have lived in and around the area for a long, long time, they have recalled, where wildflowers used to be planted around the fort area. There's always bees buzzing, but unfortunately, they have disappeared over the last 10, 15 years. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to try and bring those wild bees back to the site. Our chairman, Keith, is an avid beekeeper in his spare time. And he was all for the idea. Another one of our trustees, Neil, has actually decided he wants to train to be a beekeeper now. thanks to the project. So that's been an added benefit. We've also looking at working with the local school to see if we can get them up again, to get them more understanding of the risks involved in losing bees. If I could have the next slide, please. So my little baby within this project, the irrigation system. For those of you that don't know, one of the most important parts of an orchard is the irrigation system to keep the trees alive. So we saw it as essential to make sure that a proper irrigation system was installed on site. We're quite lucky to have multiple water access points. This one is the one that we use in particular for the orchard. It's only actually, I think it's about 10 foot to the nearest tree. So we've kind of lucked out with the location of it there. We've got an automatic watering system all hooked up now as well. So it's as efficient as possible water usage wise, as well as providing the trees with the water that they most desperately need. If I could have the next slide, please. These are some of my favourite photos of the project. We've got a number of trees that have been planted in one corner. Where they're planted on the site was chosen partly because in the right-hand image, I know it's a bit hard to see, is actually our fence line to a public footpath. So all of those in the community around us on what is well used for walking dogs, families like to go for walks during the summer. It's also a footpath that's used quite heavily by the holiday park next door to us. Everyone gets to see what we aim to have as a community orchard. We don't want to keep this just for ourselves, kind of thing. We've got a little interpretation board just there as well, explaining where the money has very gratefully come from. It also has a bit of information on about different varieties of trees we've got in there. If I remember correctly, we've got a variant of Royal Gala. The exact variant is actually one that we use where I work. It's one of the most popular Royal Gala variants actually in the country. We've also got a couple of other variants of, I think we've got some plums in there, some peaches, and I think we're going to attempt in the future to put some raspberry bushes in, if I remember correctly. If I could have the next slide, please. So we all got very excited very recently when on the Slough Fort WhatsApp group, the chairman, when checking on his bees, sent these photos through to us. The very, very first crop that we're getting from our brand new orchard. Unfortunately, they're not quite supermarket quality, as I would say at work, but they are apples, they are our own, and we have grown them on our site. We're hoping that in the coming years we'll get a much nicer, much more delicious crop. Unfortunately, these were a tad on the bitter side since it's their first year. But we look forward to getting more and more apples from the orchard. If I can have the next slide, please. So this is the interpretation board I was referring to. So we're using it to educate all of our visitors again about where the funding has come from, about the history of the area tied in with farming. It's somewhat common knowledge about obviously the hop farming in the area, but orchard farming of especially apples and pears has been a massive part of both the immediate area to the fort and greater in Kent itself for years and years. It was also a big thing that's actually been documented with those that were stationed at the fort when it was an active service thing. They quite frequently referred to the local apples and pears that they would enjoy, which is a welcome relief compared to the military rations that they were used to. And the final slide, please. And yeah, it's basically just a big thank you from not only myself, but the rest of the trustees and all the volunteers at the Slough Fort Preservation Trust, as well as to a number of our visitors actually that have pointed out that they love the idea of the orchard, and other members of the community that we engage with quite regularly. As the slide says, without your support, we'd never been able to have even got the community orchard off the ground. Really, we had one or two trees beforehand, but that was all it was, one or two. Thanks to the grateful grant from yourself, we've been able to get the orchard up and running, and we hope to expand it again in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.